transformer the 10 minutes long. We can draw down on federal dollars for the circulator. We can talk to the electric ferry, and I put all the pictures there.
Okay, good.
Okay?
So thank you, everybody. So we did want to present this on a big screen so you can appreciate what we're doing. We are very excited about the opportunity that the rebuilding of the Hillman garage presents for this city. It presents amazing opportunities for us to recondition people, to get people excited about public transport, to get people excited about moving around the city in alternate ways, and to really change the city in a very, very positive way. We know that we don't really have a choice when it comes to the Hillman garage. We know that in 2013, there was a study done on that garage that said it's at the end of its useful life. If the city paid some money and kept putting money into it, we could prop it up for a few more years. Here we are in 2021, and we haven't addressed the garage. Now, a lot of people know that the reason for that is because you live and die as a mayor and as the city council on parking in the city of Annapolis. Luckily, I managed to upset everyone very early on in my tenure, and I got all that stuff out of the way. So I wasn't afraid, or we weren't afraid, this city council were not afraid to tackle a thing that we all need to remember is the most important parking asset in the city. So I'm just going to move very quickly through some slides because I want you to meet Dharma and Contrast and Company. This initiative is not only a transportation initiative, it is a marketing initiative and a parking initiative for the city. So we have an exciting opportunity in front of us. So let me go through these slides quickly for you, and we will move on to Dharma as quick as possible. So this is what our garage is going to look like. We know what it looks like now: concrete cancer, rusted stairwells, unusable restrooms, all sorts of things like that. We're going to move to this new state-of-the-art garage with additional parking capacity that is so needed in downtown. Luckily, this asset is very valuable, and we can leverage the value of this asset to create a world-class park at City Dock, all without having to go to the local taxpayer. So this deal is going to be epic, and I thank you all for supporting it. The main thing we need to get people to know, and Dharma will tell you this, that Annapolis is open for business, and that there has never been a time that is easier to move around the city with what we create from this initiative. We have a lot of parking in Annapolis. We have more of a walking problem than a parking problem in reality. But people don't want to walk or travel between our parking assets. So making it convenient and fun to move between those multiple parking assets you see all over the city is going to be our goal here. So we have 750 spaces in the Park Place garage. Our main goal now is to move city employees from those valuable parking spaces at the Hillman garage and move them out in the Park Place garage, where we will have 120 municipal staff and vehicles located, and we'll have an easy way to get them down and a reliable way to get them back downtown. We have monthly spaces that we will be giving in Gotts Court to our business holders that we have to relocate, and they will be given the preference at Gotts and Knighton. So city employees are at the furthest parking asset. The closest parking asset to downtown and the top of Main Street are Gotts Court and the Knighton garage, and that is where our monthly parkers will be relocated as we rebuild our new garage. These are how many spaces we have. A lot of parking in the city of Annapolis. If you bring in the stadium, you can double that amount. So we could go from 4,000 to 8,000 available spaces if we work our transportation out right. One of the key things that we need to do is protect our resident parking. And we're going to do that by Park Mobile. So instead of having our employees at some of our businesses park in the residential area, we are going to try to work a deal with St. Mary's and the funeral home to give a parking area for hospitality workers, if we can, that is close to downtown, because we know we could give them free parking in other assets, but we know what happens if you work in our businesses, in the restaurant business. People are not going to park too far away from where they work. So we're trying to negotiate a deal now with those close parking assets at St. Mary's and the parking garage for the hospitality workers. But the residents now will have the ability with their parking passes to just stay on their street. But if we see people, workers on those streets who do not have, who will not, the Park Mobile app will sort of disincentivize them to park on the back streets of the thing, and we'll be encouraging them to get to other parking assets we dedicate to them during the construction. So, this is how we're going to move people around town. There are three options. The first option is an enhancement of the Circulator. So we know what the Circulator travels from Park Place to the waterfront. We're going to add a second vehicle to that. Within that, we're going to add a 10-minute trolley, which is going to do a loop that goes from Calvert Street, where we have the Knighton Garage, we have the Gotts Garage, we have the one at People's Park, and then we have the State Garage. That 10-minute trolley will do 10-minute loops downtown, up Main Street, and back around, and provide a fast and efficient way for people to get to those 3 or 4 different parking assets. Again, we're encouraging city employees to be on the outskirts of the city at Park Place, and they will come in on a 15-minute Circulator. So first thing we have is an enhancement of the Circulator, a second vehicle of the Circulator for peak periods, and then within a smaller circle, we'll have a 10-minute trolley. 10-minute trolleys, you'll be able to get on those at any point in the city, and they will continuously do 10-minute loops throughout the city. While we're doing that, we're working on a micro-transit option, an on-demand option that the garage company has provided for us, and we're finessing that idea to make that a possibility too. So our own version of an Uber or potentially something like that. So that is a work in progress. But the 10-minute trolley and the Circulator are going to get you around town and be reliable and something that you will get used to. And then when we have built the garage, you'll want us to keep it at the same sort of capacity. So the message that we're going to get and the message that Dharma is going to present to you today is that we are open for business, that it is an exciting time to come downtown, and that we can get you anywhere you need to go in a short space of time. So all of this is fluid. Thank you all for being here. So we are going to need to work together. So as we work through this process, I ask all of you, give us your information, give us your feedback, and we can evolve the transportation plan as we work through this together. So these are some of the sessions that Eileen will be presenting to you all. The Ward 1 Residents Association has a session coming up, the Downtown Business Partnership, City Dock Action Committee, and other residential associations. I want to give Eileen a big round of applause for the amount of communication she's done throughout this. I'm sure everyone in this room must have Eileen's cell number on speed dial, so if you need anything, you know where she is. I want people to be excited about this garage because it is going to be a state-of-the-art garage, a garage built for the future. It is not only going to give us 100 to 200 more parking spaces than we have, but it is also going to give us a rooftop that has solar panels on that will power the garage. It's going to have much easier egress and ingress so that we don't have to wait in line. We don't have to burn fossil fuel while we're waiting to get out the gate. You'll be able to flow through these gates pretty easily. The solar panels on the top will provide shade. If we do events on the rooftop, we'll be able to program that rooftop. So there's a lot of potential, a lot of exciting things that can come out of this new structure. So what I really want to finish up with here is ultimately that every bit of public transport that operates within the city limits, this doesn't include buses that leave the city and go into the county yet. But we believe with this exercise, we are going to be able to electrify all the transportation in the city. And if we can electrify all the transportation in the city, and that means the 10-minute trolley, we're going to reach out and get the Circulator to become electric, similar to ones you've seen in Quebec and different cities in Canada. And then at the boat show, we prototyped a electric ferry. This is a ferry that you can roll off and roll on from the back. You could get 4 bikes and 4 people in the back. You could get 4 bikes on the roof, 6 people in the front. We are working on an idea to get people to the parking asset that is City Marina in Eastport. And we are working on rebuilding 5th Street so we can create a transportation hub there. And ultimately from 5th Street, you'll be able to get to the shopping centre. And we see in the future the potential for another 10-minute trolley in Eastport so that we can get people off the peninsula or we can get people out of their cars in Eastport at the shopping centre and make the peninsula and Eastport less crowded. So that was just the summary. I want to pass it over to someone a lot more dynamic at speaking than I am, Dharma, to really sort of get you guys excited about this idea, because it's not only a transportation plan, a parking plan, but it's also a marketing plan for the city of Annapolis while we rebuild the new state-of-the-art Hillman Garage. Let's hear it for Dharma. Thank you.
So first off, thank you. I'm tremendously honored, and our agency is tremendously honored to have this opportunity. As Mayor Buckley mentioned, we run a boutique brand strategy and design agency, and we're right in the middle of downtown Annapolis. We're over on Conduit Street. But I've been a resident of Annapolis for almost 20 years now, and I absolutely love this town for a myriad of reasons. So tremendously honored to be here and have this opportunity to present today. So where do I start? I'm nervous. I think there's a lot of ground and a lot of things we want to share with you today. So we'll dive right in. So there's typically 3 things we try and accomplish in a presentation like this. 1, at a very high level, we want to reflect back the overall ideas and concepts that we heard. 2, we want to walk through our creative process to help you understand how we arrived at where we arrived. And then 3, we want to show you what the proposed messaging and creative solution can look, feel, and sound like. So I'll walk through all of that. There's a significant amount of messaging, so you'll see a lot of words before you see visuals, but I promise you'll see visuals as well. So let's start with a quick recap. So we were tasked with creating a messaging framework to communicate what's happening with the garage. So there's a garage that's coming down, being rebuilt, and the word's getting out, and it has been getting out as you've been telling the message. But as Mayor Buckley reaffirmed, there's a sort of sense of urgency around why this thing needs to be rebuilt and why this thing needs to be rebuilt now. And as we understand it, this is part of a broader initiative designed to help keep Annapolis mobile, to help keep things moving through, and to help continue to grow the city into what it can become. And this is a significant step in that direction. So as we were going through our discovery process, we just understand that we are dealing with one small but very significant step in a much broader process and a much broader vision of what this town and city can become in the future, which I find super inspiring for obvious reasons. So specifically, what our agency was tasked with was creating a messaging and visual identity, creating a framework, and then designing some of the key initial assets, like some starter templates, posters, and things that can be used to communicate what we need to communicate. But we also realized, like, if we do that, we're doing you a disservice. I think we really needed to think more holistically around how do we create a framework for messaging? How do we create a framework to tell this story. And just as importantly, what does this translate into long term? Like, how do we create something that serves as a foundation for future messaging? So we just started to think about potentially what those applications could be, where people could be seeing this message, the various types of touch points and interactions they would have with them. So where we started is just by listening. And we met with, obviously, Mayor Buckley and the team, and they started talking about the vision and the imperative around what it was that you were looking to do. So as designers, we always just try to picture in our mind's eye, like, what are we seeing? So we understand the garage and understand that this is a significant part of this story. But we're also starting to see the vision of what the new garage was going to be like, what that experience was going to look and feel like. Sort of beyond that, we also got a sense like the garage is just sort of bigger than the actual architecture around it, that it's going to impact the local neighborhood and have a cascading effect that can do a lot of different things in a lot of different ways. But we talked about and we heard about like the opportunity that ultimately this is going to unlock more parking. This is going to create more parking spaces downtown. This garage is going to offer new technologies that allow for more efficient entry, exit, just make for a more efficient system sort of throughout. We heard concepts around like this garage is going to do better with like stormwater drainage. This garage is going to do a lot of different things from an environmental standpoint that will help the long-term resiliency of this city. We heard things like charging stations and solar roofs. Like, again, this idea of this garage being able to help sustain itself in a number of different ways. We heard concepts around traffic circulation, like how this garage can be addressed in such a way to improve the overall efficiency of mobility in the area. Then we heard themes around what these prospective transportation options are going to look like, from trolleys and systems like this to potentially adding more bike services around to, again, to try to encourage mobility in a number of different ways. We heard themes around sort of long-term vision of potentially adding things like electric ferry. Obviously, this is a placeholder image, but getting a sense of like what those, we started just picturing in our mind's eye like what this reimagined experience can feel like. We heard ideas that there's going to be mobility apps and other ways to get into and out of this city that rely on newer technologies to help facilitate easier entry and exit. We heard talk also about potentially exploring like valet options, like other things to consider, again, looking for every opportunity to add efficiency to how we come in and out of this place. So what else did we hear? We heard, and we had a number of meetings with also business owners in the area, and the one thing we heard loud and clear was, we cannot make this a message about just construction. Like, this is a tactical part of what we need to communicate, but this has to be a bigger, broader, and more aspirational message. We heard like we have to capture this, right? We have to capture the energy and vitality of downtown. We have to communicate like this is a place you want to come and visit. Like from just amazing places to grab drinks, amazing places to eat, to just the array of different experiences you heard downtown. I think it was just reinforced like the vibrancy of what the downtown experience is and how do we capture and convey that. So from boutique shopping to retail experiences, to live music, to just an incredible number of ice cream shops in a pretty contained square mile area. There's a lot to experience in this city, and I think we walked away with this sense of like, how do we capture the openness of what this city is, and how do we reinforce that idea and that concept? So for us, the first part was like, how do we tell the world? Like, what are we actually telling the world? And just as importantly, like, who is the world? Like, who are we actually speaking to? And at a broad level, we had a general sense of the audiences that we're dealing with: residents, business owners, visitors, tourists, legislators, employees, and other sort of interested parties. And just starting to loosely think about like what those groupings can look like where overlapping messages can sit and how we speak to these various constituencies and how we structure messaging frameworks around that. So first we had to think about, well, what's the story we're actually telling people? And then the second part of the question was, what's the sequence of telling that story? Like, this thing isn't going to happen overnight. How do we communicate the right message at the right time in the right context to elicit the right reaction? So we thought about it like, let's think about this in terms of stages. So we thought, if we break this thing down into 2 stages of messaging, with the stage 1 being pre-construction messaging, which would begin as soon as these pieces are ready to go, and then extend into the actual beginning of the construction. And we would see it as really sort of a 2-part message that would happen during this stage. The first part is the garage is being rebuilt, which has to be captured and conveyed. And then the second part is we have a plan to move you around. And for each of those parts, and we've been developing out supporting messages, but each of those parts, we need to be able to answer these questions, like why is this garage being rebuilt? Why is the garage being rebuilt now? When does it begin? How long does it take? What can I expect during the construction process? Sorry, I'm getting used to this mic. And where can I go to learn more? And then for the second part, we have to be able to answer these questions, like what is the actual plan? Where do I park? What are the other best ways to get in and around downtown? And where can I go to learn more? And then we started thinking about like where are the channels, like where would you see these types of messages? So potentially these stage 1 messages could be at any number of different touch points, from print display to outdoor to digital. But again, just starting to think through what are the realities of where this brand and where this message is going to exist, and how do we make sure we're thinking about a system that's comprehensive enough that it can effectively hit all of these touch points, with the idea of creating one singular dedicated resource where the answers all lie. And then we thought about like a second stage of messaging that would then begin immediately upon construction and would go until completion. And this is a 3-part message. So again, the garage is being rebuilt and here's where to park instead, so a lot of overlap in terms of what we're communicating in stage 1. The second part of this message is reinforcing like downtown is open and here are the best ways to get in and out of here. And then the third part, that what we're building here, the new garage and the downtown experience that it's going to help facilitate, is going to be an amazing opportunity for a number of different reasons. And again, we just started thinking through loosely, like where would those touch points be? Where would you see those potential messages? So we thought first, before we jump into the actual executions, we thought like, let's tell the story of how we would see the narrative of the garage. So for almost 4 centuries, this city has made its mark on the world. And perhaps nowhere is that mark better embodied than in the vibrant, evolving experience that is downtown Annapolis. On January 2022, the next evolution of this city will begin with a formal reconstruction of the Noah Hillman garage. Well past its prime and long overdue for renovation, the reimagined Hillman garage will offer a far better parking experience downtown for residents, visitors, employees, and tourists alike. Upon reopening, the new garage will immediately allow more spots to park in downtown Annapolis than ever before. But beyond simply more spaces, the new garage will also feature a host of technologies that will improve everything from local traffic circulation to the harmful effects of stormwater streaming into our beautiful bay. Reflecting our sustainable and resilient mindset, the new garage will feature a solar roof, offer more charging stations for electrical vehicles, and add bike parking and better lighting, safety, and security features throughout. Its modern aesthetic will visually elevate the landscape that surrounds it and will begin to create a more inviting entry atmosphere on day 1. And just beyond the cars and the gates, the new garage will reactivate the hidden gem that is Gorman Street and begin to extend the vibe of Main Street just a little bit further. In short, it's the necessary solution. The potential is clear. The time is now. But this isn't a story about just a garage. It's not a monument to parking spaces, cutting-edge features, modern architecture, or even smarter technologies. This is a story about a symbol. The symbol today is a garage, but its meaning and purpose extends far beyond simply housing vehicles. Our new garage is a reflection of the city we are becoming and a reminder of the steps that we must endure in order to get there. You see, we're not simply rebuilding a garage, we're creating a gateway. We're creating a gateway into the city to offer easier access to all of the things that makes downtown, well, downtown. We're building a gateway between our historic heritage and progressive mindset. And ultimately, we're building a gateway to help lead us into the city that we are seeking to become. Our new garage is coming up. It will be a symbol that helps define who we are and what we want to be, and the results are going to be amazing. So we started putting together an overall narrative, like a foundational structure for how we would begin to tell the story. And then from there, we would try to determine, well, how do we distill this down to an idea? How do we create sort of a singular concept to encapsulate all of what we want to communicate? So we came up with this concept of Access Annapolis, built obviously on these 2 key parts, The first being the ability to access, the ability to have something that's open, and obviously the second part being Annapolis. And so we wanted to use this as a foundational construct, and you'll see how we apply it as we go through this. But the other thing we tried to figure out is, how do we tell this story visually? Like, how do we communicate? These are all these different concepts and messages and ideas that have to be captured and conveyed. This thing is opening, it's being rebuilt. Downtown is open, here's where to park, here's how to get around. The new garage is gonna be awesome. Like, how do we distill all of this down to a symbol that can become recognizable and usable in different ways? So we were just thinking about parking in general, like what kind of symbolism does parking usually use? Like, how do you create constructs around that? And we realized just a parking sign alone is not gonna be effective enough, or it's not gonna be holistic enough for what we need. So we looked to the garage for cues and inspiration to see if there was pieces we could build off of from there. And we didn't really find anything that felt like it was worthwhile to start building off of. So we thought, let's create our own symbol. So we started just exploring like Annapolis in general, like symbolism in Annapolis, to get a sense of it. Like, what does the logo mark look like? And one of the things we really liked was the openness of this idea of this gateway, this thing being open. So we were looking at things like colors and just getting a sense of like, how do we capture and convey this story? And so we thought, well, what if we sort of loosely combine these ideas, this idea of Annapolis and sailing and this gateway and this open symbol, and create our own version of a mark? And that mark can be used in very tactical ways, like we can use it as a masking element when we just want to showcase like pictures of and renderings of the new garage. It can also be used to house and showcase visual treatments for the various transportation options being offered or being considered. It can also be used as a reflection of the experiences you can expect downtown, like the beauty and the vibrancy of the downtown experience. We also started just thinking about color and where we could start to draw inspiration from, how we can look downtown and look at the symbols of downtown and what it represents and build a recognizable sort of color palette around it. And one of the things, and you'll see this as we go through our expressions, is we want this thing to be noticed. We want something to feel sort of as vibrant and as prismatic as the city. So we thought, let's bring it all together. So we started with just like very simple tactical execution. So we were thinking, so pre-construction messaging, if the first thing we have to convey is this thing is being rebuilt, like, let's just make it clear. So this is the existing Annapolis parking, and using the existing website, just sort of updating the messaging here to just reflect that. So just immediately creating something so that we can start getting the awareness out there and captured and conveyed. But beyond that then, beyond sort of thinking about this simple landing page here, we started thinking about how do we create a noticeable experience? Like, how do we start to take this look and feel and these components we've developed and start to build messaging around it? Hillman Garage is being rebuilt, but downtown Annapolis remains more open than ever. Visit AnnapolisParking.com to discover all of the ways to get around. And again, just like this is how we can start to bring in the palette, like how we can start to create something that can be recognized and seen. So in the beginning, we just start playing around with permutations of it, just to get a quick sense of like how it can work in various types of constructs. Again, a lot of these are very sort of hypothetical in nature, but giving you a sense of like how we would be able to capture and convey those ideas, and how we can create a design framework that allows those ideas to be communicated in any number of different channels. So as we start to think about it, like how do we get into and start to think about like aspect ratios for where you would promote and where you would put the messages. So again, so I'm just clicking through so you can get a quick sense of how we could see this visual experience and messaging experience start to translate, and how these various elements can start to and begin to work together. Just clicking through. And then even in some instances where we want to lean in on the messaging in different ways. Hillman Garage is being rebuilt, and the new downtown garage is going to be amazing. Visit Annapolis Parking to learn more and discover all of the wonderful ways to get around. So creating a pretty simple design system that we can start with. And then from there, obviously, the next test is like, let's make sure we're creating something that works in digital context. Like, let's make sure as we're thinking about whether social ads, digital posts, like, let's create a design system that's simple enough that we can use it in these types of configurations. And just like quick example of like how it can start to appear in various types of contexts. But again, like, how do we create something that people see? How do we create something that people start to notice? So we started thinking about just creating design systems for social media posts. There's a lot of different types of information and a lot of different types of messages you're putting out there. So creating design constructs that we can use to capture and reinforce that message. A new garage is coming downtown. From safety to stormwater drainage to solar roofs, The new Hillman garage is going to help keep Annapolis accessible well into the future. Our new solar roofs will have you covered. A state-of-the-art solar roof system is just one of the many new features of the upcoming Hillman garage. So starting to use an opportunity to promote both the direct messages and also the long-term and reinforce sort of the long-term idea and vision of what this garage is going to be able to do. So getting into the second part of that. So we have some messages and constructs for how we communicate this thing is being rebuilt. Now, how do we communicate this idea of getting people around? So we thought, like, let's create an orienting system around it. So Hillman Garage is closing for reconstruction, but downtown Annapolis is more open than ever. Heading downtown, hop on the trolley. With a number of convenient parking locations and pickups, the trolley is always a quick shot downtown. Heading downtown, take a ferry. Fancy the water? So do we. And now it can be the best part of your commute. Heading downtown, use the valet. Looking to get in and out downtown quickly? Try our new valet service and leave the parking to us. Heading downtown, try on demand. We're partnering with state-of-the-art rideshare apps to get you in and out downtown faster than ever. So again, how our design system can start to come together and communicate different ideas. Heading downtown, let's go electric. Our fleet of shuttles is fully charged and ready to move you where you need to be. Heading downtown, park here. There are a number of parking garages here, all within a close distance. From a design perspective, again, creating something that's noticeable, like creating something that people can see and creating something that's clear. And we always use as an effective litmus test is whenever you look at any sort of brand messaging, it's just like squint your eyes and look at it. And you should still be able to make out sort of a clearly defined hierarchy of messaging. We want to make sure that people can see those messages in really clear visual ways. So just different permutations of how that could potentially look and feel. And again, how it can start to translate into various types of signage and promotional materials. Just clicking through. So then we started looking at the second part of the messaging. So if the first part is about this garage is coming down, being rebuilt, and that we have a plan to move you around, we started focusing on that second part, like downtown Annapolis is open, and here's where to park. And we wanted, as we started thinking about here's where to park, this is where we really wanted the use of this symbol. This is where we really wanted to create a really clear construct. So as we are directing people and moving people and navigating people throughout the city, like using these design elements to help orient. And this is where we want the rest of the design to get out of the way and really the messaging to be front and center. So as somebody's moving around, whether you're going to the Naval Academy or Park Place, like creating parking signage and systems that start to use this mark in repetitive ways so we have a clear symbol we can tie back from an organizational perspective. Mayor Buckley had suggested the idea of the bus lines being called the platypus and the goat. So obviously very much a proof of concept, but how we could start to visually tie these ideas and concepts together in different ways. Again, this is a rough Photoshop job, but you can get a quick sense of like how we would start to use this signage and this visual system in different ways to capture and sort of reinforce these parking options. Just clicking through so you can get a general sense of how it can function. And also we can get into tactical things, so signage that specifically directs and points people to the other parking options and availabilities they have. Just clicking through. So from a brand perspective, we really heard loud and clear this idea of like, how do we capture that this town remains open? So thinking through that second part of that messaging, from boutique shopping and eclectic outdoor dining experiences to more flavors of ice cream than you can imagine, downtown Annapolis is more inviting and accessible than ever. Visit Annapolis Parking to learn all of the wonderful ways to get down here. From boutique shopping and eclectic outdoor dining experience to breweries and live music. So again, I'm just clicking through so you can start to see how these patterns could work, but how we can take the exact same construct that we used to talk about, the garage being rebuilt, and then also turn that into the visual vehicle that we use to capture and express this idea of like, this town remains as open and as vibrant as ever. So clicking through so you can get a quick sense of how that can look and feel in various types of applications. Then beyond that, what we realized is people need information. So well, how do we create like systems that, and how do we create tools and resources that help answer all those questions? So what you're seeing here is a proposed sort of guide to retailers. Opening Annapolis, a retailer's guide to the Hillman Garage reconstruction plan. When it starts, what to expect, and what the future looks like. And then using that as an opportunity to clearly define like what are their concerns and what are our solutions or proposed solutions to them. So why a new garage? From more spaces to more sustainability. The new Hillman Garage is going to open up downtown Annapolis like never before. This is what the future will look like. More parking spots, more convenience, better traffic circulation, extended Main Street vibe. So again, reinforcing like what it is we're doing and what the ultimate outcome of all of this will be. And kind of taking that same approach on the resident side. What you're seeing here is a hypothetical mock-up of what that could look like, a messaging guide specifically targeted to residents, a resident's guide to when it starts, what to expect, and what the future looks like. And then using that as the opportunity to speak directly to the needs and motivations of the residents. So, excuse me. What's the plan to protect parking? From redirecting traffic to exploring bold new transportation options, we're working on ways to keep your residential parking protected. Redirecting traffic, engaging new transportation options, promoting other parking facilities, and better enforcement. So again, hypothetical examples of how we can create messaging framework and specifically targeted messaging framework that speaks directly to the various constituencies. From a brand perspective, like the project is not going to begin and end just on construction. So how do we create a persistent experience so people are constantly being informed? So what you're seeing here is sort of a hypothetical reimagining of a monthly email that goes out. Like, here's what to expect this month. During month 3, we're continuing demolition and beginning to set the foundation for the next stage. View our progress here. And then it's time to make space. One of the key features of the new Hillman Garage will be smart parking sensors to make parking faster and more intuitive than ever. It's one of the many ways we're building for the future. So again, reminding people, even throughout these sort of persistent, more informative types of communications, reminding people of what the long-term vision and implications are of what you're creating. And then kind of leaning into that last part, like how do we then sort of capture and convey like what we're trying to create downtown? And so we started thinking about like first, like as we then start to transition from more tactical messages around how to move around to messages that specifically speak to the features of the new garage. We're building a more resilient downtown than ever. Parking spots have always been valuable. Our new garage is going to have more of them. Looking to recharge, we've got you covered. So again, over time, starting to introduce more of the posts and more of the messaging that specifically speaks to the benefits of the garage and how that can extend out in different ways. Like Main Street, we're about to extend its vibe. Annapolis is a resilient city, and today we're evolving faster than ever. And again, reaffirming, if you're looking for a quick way in and out of the city, we've got a number of ways to get you there. From a brand perspective, the idea had been tossed around. Again, some of these are very sort of conceptual in nature, but over time, like if you are encouraging visitors to downtown, like creating some sort of brand experience around it or some sort of memorable thing that we can start to look at it as an opportunity, like how do we start to give the city sort of a visual identity, and then how can some of these pieces start to come together in more sort of conceptual ways in the future. And then lastly, like just thinking about like future facing, like how do we take this message and transition this idea from downtown is not just open, downtown's awesome, right? So Annapolis is beautiful, from historic brick roads to majestic state houses. There's a lot of beauty downtown. We encourage you to explore all of it. Annapolis is delicious, from crepes to candied apples. There's a lot to taste downtown. We encourage you to explore all of it. Annapolis is musical, from comedy shows to concerts. There's a lot to experience here. We encourage you to explore all of it. So as we were doing this, we were just starting to think about like long term, like how do we then start to create a brand around the city? Like how do we capture and reinforce like all of the wonderful things that take place here? And how do we create a design system that can extend sort of past just the construction of the garage and translate out in different ways? So again, very much proof of concept and for a little bit further down the road, but really thinking through like how we can create a visual system that can capture and a messaging structure that can capture and support these ideas. And that's where we stopped. Again, we're working with Eileen and Mitchell on the team on the nuts and bolts and the specific details of the messaging. They've been developing sort of supporting messaging frameworks. But at a high level, what we were looking to do is build an overall like foundational idea that we could use to build around, to both communicate what's happening, what's going to take place, and what it's going to all unlock in the future. So kind of with that, I'll pause. And yes, I'll pause. Yeah.